Welcome back to the Whispering Tome. If you are new here, this is a place for stories that history forgot to tell. The quiet stories, the human stories, the ones that happened between the great events that fill the history books. You are listening to a special mini-episode of the Silk Road, a merchant's silent epic. In episode 1, we met Tahir, a young merchant from Kashgar, 22 years old. He had never left his hometown, but when his family faced financial ruin, his father asked him to do the unthinkable, join a caravan and travel the Silk Road to seek their fortune. We watched him prepare, we watched him say goodbye, we watched him walk through the eastern gate of Kashgar, leaving behind everything he had ever known. The caravan headed into the desert, 40 camels, 50 souls, destination Samarkand. Or so Tahir thought. 3 days into the journey, he noticed something strange, something that made his stomach drop, something that revealed just how little he truly understood about the world he had entered. This is that moment. 3 days into the journey, Tahir noticed something that made his stomach drop. It started as a small observation. Every morning, when the caravan rose before dawn, the sky ahead of them glowed with the coming sunrise. Every evening, when they finally stopped to make camp, the sunset burned somewhere behind them. At first, he thought nothing of it. He was too exhausted to think about anything except putting one foot in front of the other. But on the third night, as he sat alone by the fire chewing on a piece of dried meat, his tired brain finally made the connection. The sun rises in the east. The sun sets in the west. Every morning they walked toward the sunrise. That meant they were heading east. Tahir stopped chewing. His father had said Samarkand. Everyone had said Samarkand. The merchants in the bazaar, the caravan master, even the guards, they all talked about Samarkand as if it were the destination. But Samarkand was west of Kashgar. He knew this, everyone knew this. You could ask any child in the bazaar and they would point west and say Samarkand. So why, in the name of God, were they walking east? Tahir stood up so quickly that he knocked over his water skin. He did not stop to pick it up. His eyes scanned the camp until he spotted Yusuf al-Khorasani, the caravan master, sitting alone by a smaller fire on the edge of camp. He walked over, his heart pounding. Yusuf Agher. The old man looked up from the worn parchment he had been studying. His face was unreadable in the dancing firelight. Young Tahir, you should be sleeping. Tomorrow will be harder than today. I need to ask you something. I'll ask you. Tahir hesitated. He was suddenly aware of how stupid he might sound, but he had to know. The sun, he said, it rises ahead of us every morning. Yusuf nodded slowly. Yes, the sun does that. But Samarkand is west. We should be walking toward the sunset. Should we? Yes, everyone said Samarkand. My father said Samarkand. You said Samarkand. Yusuf stared at him for a long moment. Then his shoulders began to shake. A sound escaped his lips, a low rumble at first, then louder, building into a full, roaring laugh that echoed across the quiet camp. Nearby, other merchants turned their heads, curious about what could make the famously stoic caravan master laugh so hard. Tahir felt his face grow hot. I do not understand what is funny. Yusuf wiped tears from the corners of his eyes, still chuckling. Oh boy, oh your poor father. He sent you out here without explaining anything, didn't he? He explained. He said go to Samarkand, sell the goods, bring back profit. And what goods were you planning to sell in Samarkand? Silk, paper, tea, porcelain. Wonderful, and where is your silk? Tahir opened his mouth to answer, then stopped. He did not have any silk. Where is your paper, your tea, your porcelain? He did not have any of those either. Yusuf leaned forward, his voice dropping to the patient tone of a teacher explaining something very simple to a very slow student. Silk comes from China, paper comes from China, tea comes from China, porcelain comes from China, and where is China? The answer came out as barely a whisper. East. East, very good. Now, did you bring any silk from Kashgar? No. So if you have no silk, and silk comes from China, and China is east, then where must we go first? Tahir closed his eyes. East. Excellent, you are learning already. Yusuf gestured for him to sit. Tahir obeyed, feeling like a child who had just been caught in an obvious lie. This is how the Silk Road works, young merchant. You do not simply carry goods from one city to another. You complete a circuit, a full circle. He drew a shape in the air with his finger. We leave Kashgar and go east. We cross this miserable desert and reach the Chinese trading posts, Dunhuang, Turpan, perhaps even further. There we spend our silver. We buy silk at the source where it is cheap. We buy porcelain, paper, tea. We load the camels until they complain. His finger reversed direction. Then we turn around. We cross the desert again back to Kashgar. We rest, we repair. And only then do we go west, over the Pamir mountains to Samarkand. He dropped his hand. In Samarkand, that silk we bought for 1 coin in China sells for 10 coins. The porcelain sells for 20. The paper, 30. One full circuit, east to buy, west to sell, can make a man wealthy for life. Tahir sat in silence, processing this information. How long, he finally asked, the full circuit, how long does it take? 8 months, sometimes 10, sometimes longer if the weather is bad or the passes are blocked. 8 months. His father had told him the journey would take perhaps 3 months. He had imagined being home before the winter snow. He had promised his sister he would bring her a silk ribbon from Samarkand. He had not imagined spending nearly a year on the road. My father, Tahir said slowly, did not mention any of this. Your father probably assumed you understood, or perhaps he did not want to frighten you with the full truth. Yusuf shrugged. Either way, it does not matter now. You are here. The caravan moves east. Whether you knew the route or not, you are walking it. Tahir stared into the fire for a long moment. Then, despite everything, he laughed. It was a small laugh, barely more than a breath, but it was real. The absurdity of his situation had finally hit him. He had walked into the greatest journey of his life without even knowing where he was going. I am an idiot, he said. Yes, Yusuf agreed, but you are an idiot who is willing to learn. That puts you ahead of most. He reached over and patted Tahir's shoulder once, a gesture that was almost fatherly. Consider this your first lesson, young merchant. On the Silk Road, always know where you are going, know why you are going there, and know what you will do when you arrive. He tapped Tahir's forehead with one calloused finger. The road does not forgive ignorance, but it does reward those who learn from their mistakes. Tahir nodded slowly. What is the second lesson? Yusuf smiled, a rare expression on his weathered face. Ask me again after you survive the desert. He stood, tucking the parchment map into his robe. Now sleep, we walk at dawn, east. He said the last word with a small smirk, then walked away into the darkness, leaving Tahir alone with the fire and his thoughts. Tahir sat there for a long time. He thought about his father, who had sent him on this journey with incomplete information. Had it been an oversight, or had Mahmud known that if he told Tahir the full truth, the full distance, the full danger, the full length of time, his son might have refused? He thought about his sister, waiting for him in Kashgar, counting the days until his return. She expected him in 3 months, it would be 8, maybe 10. He thought about his mother, dead these 10 years, who had always told him that curiosity was a gift. She had been right. His curiosity had led him here, to this fire, to this desert, to this moment of humiliating realization. But she had also said something else. Fear is not your enemy. Fear tells you to be careful, but you must not let fear make your decisions. Tahir was afraid, he was very afraid, but he was also, for the first time since leaving Kashgar, genuinely curious about what lay ahead. China, he was going to China. Not just to Samarkand, that was only the second half of the journey. First, he would cross the Taklamakan. He would see the trading posts of the East. He would walk in lands where people spoke languages he had never heard, where the customs and clothes and faces were nothing like his own. It was terrifying. It was also, he realized, exactly what he had always dreamed of. He looked east toward the darkness where the desert waited. Somewhere out there, beyond the dunes, beyond the death, lay China. And beyond that, eventually, lay Samarkand. The road was longer than he had imagined. But at least now he knew which direction it went. And so Tahir learned his first lesson on the Silk Road. Not about survival, not about trade, but about something more fundamental. Know where you are going, know why, and know what you will do when you arrive. It is a lesson that applies far beyond the desert. This mini-episode exists because of you. A viewer named Ab3Iham watched episode 1 and noticed something I missed. Kashgar sits at the western end of the Taklamakan. Samarkand is even further west, so why would the caravan head east? Instead of simply correcting the error, I thought, what if Tahir noticed the same thing? What if he had that same moment of confusion that our viewer had? And so a mistake became a story. A correction became a character moment, and Tahir learned something important about himself and the journey ahead. Thank you, Ab3Iham, and thank you to everyone who watches closely, who asks questions, who keeps this story honest. You make the Whispering Tome better. In episode 2, Tahir will face the Taklamakan desert in full, the sea of death, sandstorms that swallow caravans whole, thirst that drives men mad, and an oasis that should have been there but was not. The journey continues. If you want to follow Tahir into the desert, subscribe and turn on notifications. And if this story has meant something to you, share it with someone who might appreciate a whisper from the past. Until next time, take care of yourself. This has been the Whispering Tome.